Carl Jung in general is fairly occult, and honestly, that was probably my first step into the interest, even though I didn't recognize it as such at the time.
Check it, yo, I was summoned like a demon from a Ouija board that entered through the spirit world in 1984. I was only posing as a human long enough to make a movement and control you through my music, yo. American monster, pain is the mantra, pain is no obstacle, blade through your optical.
So I just wanted to hear what your take is on the NI and how it plays out in your life, and what kind of things you see occurring. Because
so
yeah, I imagine it's tough.
It's kind of hard because NI is the hardest one to describe. You know, of all the functions, NI is probably the hardest, and also because of where I have it, like
it's your weak spot.
Yeah, and it's also it's hard to get a clear perspective on yourself, and it's hard to do it when it's like, when does that function come into play? You know, but
yeah, I mean, give it your best shot, whatever you identify it as.
So I guess one way that I would say that it manifests for sure is like I have a strong interest in things that are like the occult and esoteric, but I don't consider myself I'm not anybody who uses it, right? Like I've got a shit ton of books. I've got a whole shelf full of books right here about the occult. But I only did one time in my life I tried to spell, but that was a long time ago. That was more drugs than anything. I didn't have any knowledge of the stuff. At that point, I was just like, I'm looking at 15 years. I'll piss in a jar of glass and bury it in the backyard. I don't care. But and same with astrology. Like, astrology fascinates me, especially Vedic astrology, since it kind of blew my mind. But I don't understand it. I don't use it. You know, I can plug my information in and see what the computer tells me, or listen to friends explain it to me. But ultimately, I don't feel like I have a grasp on these things, even though I have a big interest in them.
So rather than the inferior function being something, it's more so for you, it's a lack of a connection being made in that particular, I guess, if you want to call it like the metaphysical realm.
I suppose, no, I think a lack of connection might be a way to describe it, but not the best way to describe it. I am very, I suppose, for lack of a better words, I'm very intuitive or instinctual, in the common parlance sense, not in the Jungian sense. And I think that is tapped into it. I'm timid about it. I'm timid about doing anything intentional with it. And sort of insecure about it. So I guess I don't know which, I'm mostly socionics is how I see things. And the fourth function there is one that you're seeking. You want more of it, you value it, but you also are aware of your own weaknesses in it. Right. So you
to the point where it creates discomfort within the self.
Or just insecurity. I guess I don't know if I'm necessary. I don't know how good or bad I necessarily am at it, but I perceive myself as kind of unqualified to touch that, right? Like I can read the books, I can buy the shit, I can observe it from a distance. I can ask, people. I know a lot of girls who are involved in this sort of stuff pretty deeply, and I can ask them about it, but for some reason I don't have much confidence in myself actually doing it.
When you say doing it, are you talking about like teaching it or utilizing it for your own benefit, or
utilizing it mostly, because you can't really teach something until you've utilized it.
Right.
I mean, theoretically, I wouldn't feel comfortable teaching something unless I utilized it.
Yeah.
But I would say, so that is, my interest in the occult, I'd say is definitely an area where I think that my NI inferior shows itself.
Okay.
Like,
so
do you have interest in the occult or anything or do you know anything about it?
I haven't done any deep dives into it. There's been periods where I've listened to audiobooks related to the occult, but I've never myself have had a heavy interest in it. I know a long time ago I had I was listening to, I don't know if you know who XXX Tentacion is,
Uh-uh.
the rapper. Yeah, he's a rapper, and he was really big on the occult. And there was like rumors of him doing like deals with the devil and shit, and which is one of the reasons that he got killed. And then I started diving. I took like a quick dive into learning about like how to make deals with the devil and shit. And then I was like, I'm not gonna fucking do this. I'm just gonna turn this shit off.
Yeah.
But I've never been heavily fascinated by it or anything. But then like I feel like the occult is such a broad term because like I
It is.
have I have gotten heavily into like uh archetypal studies and figuring out how to utilize these ideas to benefit my life, like the king warrior magician lover, and
Yeah,
figuring
all that stuff is like right on the cusp. I mean,
right, yeah,
it's like it's almost a cult knowledge that's been sort of diluted. Same with
right.
Jungian, like really type of Carl Jung in general is
Hmm.
fairly occult, and honestly, that was probably my first step into the interest, even though I didn't recognize it as such at the time.
Right. Yeah, because I almost look at it. Obviously, it's not like a literal science, but I am treating it as a literal science, so I tend to not classify it as occultic teachings. But like what we're doing in a lot of ways is because these ideas, the information that we're consuming is being utilized by our brain to then analyze the self to then change our present reality in some way or shape.